Hello friends, family and other creatures of the sea, welcome to a fabulous match of StarCraft 2. Today we have Clem here in the top right, spawning as our blue Terran player, versus, in the bottom left, Serral as our red Zerg playing for Team Basilisk. This game comes from the most recent WTL clan war between Basilisk and Liquid, which was played last weekend on the old maps, but on the new patch. So the first time we see Serral in action on the new patch in a TVZ nonetheless, the matchup that perhaps got influenced the most. We see already a massive change up here coming out of Clem. Something that actually wasn't common at all in the previous patch is what we're seeing right now. Well, first of all, we're seeing some seaweed being sold on the screen. Sadly, this is not a replay, so we just have to use the live feed that got provided. The quality might be a little bit worse, but for some high-level StarCraft 2, you know, I don't mind having slightly lower quality as well, some Chinese ads on the screen. Now, what I was gonna say is that we see an opener here with a gas first coming out of Clem. That means that he's going to have 50 more gas by the time his barracks finishes, which will allow him to get a much quicker factory. I think the goal here is to get a very fast factory on the low ground, and with that factory on the low ground, kind of complete the wall. So a very similar approach to what we've seen people like Beyond do with a double barracks opener in this matchup. We now see with a barracks into a factory. So it's going to allow Clem to move on the map with his Helions and perhaps his Cyclones without having to worry about run-bys. Now, why wasn't this so popular in the previous patch, you may ask? Couldn't you do the same thing and just go Helions? Yes, but if you did that and your opponent opened up with roaches, there was a good chance you would just end up losing all of your production and your wall. With the new Cyclone, however, roaches are not much of an issue anymore. These early game roach pushes are much easier to deal with generally, and thus having this in the wall makes much more sense, in my opinion, and also in Clem's opinion. And if there's a Terran player whose opinion you want to be sharing, most of the time that is going to be Clem. As we see the Reaper right now harassing a little bit, almost getting a drone there. Quick movement here coming out of our good friend Clem, who's just moving back and forth with those Reapers. Factory swaps over towards the reactor. Double Cyclone opener. Okay, this is kind of what I expected. Just getting those double Cyclones out, getting a little bit of map control, perhaps trying to even fight with some of these queens, destroying some overlords early on. Now, this is basically like getting a Viking, except it hits much quicker, and you're not flying. So yes, you are perhaps in a little bit more trouble. One of these links might actually end up falling. Good control here out of Clem, which is kind of, I mean, his Reaper control is so freaking sick. It is mental to watch this. It is so sick to watch. Really high level stuff here coming out of Clem. First two Cyclones on the way, barracks being thrown down behind this. This is not quite what I had expected, to be honest. This is not at all what I had expected. A second barracks being added in. Lots of gas in the bank as well for Clem. So the second barracks almost makes me believe like this is going to be a... Oh, there's a second Reaper. I hadn't seen that either. Second Reaper shows up. Double Cyclones with the two Reapers. Going to take out two Queens here, perhaps. Beautiful play. Now the Helions show up. And the third Queen's also going down. Serral not being used to these Cyclones being here. And practically dying against the first three units that Clem sent out across the map. Absolutely huge moves here. Clem now trying to rotate in towards this third base. Links, however, are out. Cyclones real bad against those links. Helions not with enough damage output. So yes, three Queens go down. But Clem also has to give up a little bit of map control here. So he loses those Cyclones. Overall, I'd still say that this early game trade favors Clem purely because with Queens dying, that also means that a large portion of the creep spread is not going to be capable of being pushed forward. And that is something that Serral generally is very good at. So you're really limiting Serral in a spot where he usually isn't very limited. Mainly the creep spread. At the same time, Helions now moving in. Serral out of position with the links. Clem smells something. He's like, I don't smell any links. Perhaps he doesn't smell something, he smells the lack of something. And that's the nasty smell of links defending these drones. Helion's moving in, getting 9 kills over here. Shot on the Evo chamber, could have perhaps been on those links instead. Now these Helions are gonna be stuck, but 11 kills so far is a pretty decent start. The follow-up here is looking solid as well. Clem still looking for damage, not quite finding it. Now gets another drone here on the low ground, forces a pull away of these drones as well. And yes, these Helions are going to end up dying, but at the same time, 12 drones falling is a pretty freaking big deal. 1-1 will start as a third CC is getting closer to finishing up as well, as a third barracks now goes up. So we'll see an aggressive type of 2-1-1 follow-up here coming out of Clem is what I'm kind of expecting. As there's a lot of Marines out already. Saro is going to need to move into position with some type of unit to deal with it. And we see that switch into the Roach Warren as our observer here kind of points out as well. And this is different. Usually we'd see a Baneling nest. Now, of course, the Baneling will not receive the 5 health bonus anymore after finishing up centrifugal hooks. An absolutely huge change in the Terran versus Zerg matchup. Which means that we'll see most likely a shift into more roach-based plays coming out of Zergs in the upcoming few months. Beautiful elevator up into the main. Serral though, oh my god, already anticipated. I was like, where are those links going? Serral knowing that he can deal with those double medevac drops with the queens and already had the links routed to the main. This is such sick play, right? Clem is like, okay, queens are here, I go to the main, but Serral already was in the main as well. Pure anticipation here coming out of the Zerg. God, I freaking love watching these two guys go against each other. I actually don't really enjoy Serral games majority of the time because I think Serral plays kind of boring. He plays a very kind of solid style in which he tends to absorb all the damage. So if you have a more passive player, like if I play against Serral, you tend to get extremely boring games. Because I'm just sitting there, Serral's just sitting there, and in the end Serral wins because he's better at macro and it's better late game control. But when he's fighting against Clem, Clem is the guy that will throw literally everything in the kitchen sink at you. And now it's Serral's turn for a little bit of a run by. This is going to get cleaned up without too much damage, although I say that. These Marines, I'm not sure if they can fight off these links. Medevacs are helping out. But yeah, Clem at the same time is attacking, as I can see on the minimap. Sadly, we're not being shown that fight. Okay, it's gonna get cleaned up. There's no fort base yet here for Serral, who is right now on 3 bases. 66 drones against 67 workers. Brilliant position here, in my opinion, for Clem. Despite the supply looking favorable for Serral, this is all Roach supply. There are no upgrades. There's no fort base. Fort base now starts the same time as Clem's fort base. That is usually a very bad sign for Zerg. 6 Overlords on the way here for our Finnish Zerg player as well. So yeah, what I was saying is that I think if you have Serral against a very aggressive player, it tends to produce the most fun games. So Serral versus Hero, Serral versus Clem, Serral versus Elaser. I think these types of series, you know, in the CVZ, ZVT, and the CVP matchup tend to be the most fun. You just get these, yeah, this Serral just kind of sitting there as the punching bag until the punching bag all of a sudden grows a set of arms themselves and starts striking you back. And once Serral starts striking back, usually is with a lot of force, because this guy has a lot of power in his hands. A lot of power in his hands indeed. But for now, Clem comfortably in the driving seat. Hive is starting. Infestor popping out there, of course, with enough energy for a fungal. Range has been reduced on the fungal growth, but the Infestors are a little bit easier to transition into, because you don't require the pathogen glands upgrades initially. And it's not so much about money, although it's also about money. It's mainly about the time that you need to wait for pathogen glands to start. So Infestors really just coming out a full minute quicker these days is obviously fantastic for Zerg. Double mine drop now heading in. Wanted to drop something at the fort, probably now heading towards the main base. Let's see if there's anything in position. And of course there is. Why do I even ask myself these questions out loud? As Sarah's always in position, it seems like. Clem has slowed down a little bit though, but not for long. He usually doesn't slow down for a very long time. We see a massive unsiege here with all of his tanks. Wondering what the follow-up plan is going to be. Double mine drop wanting to go in there. As 3 more barracks, the Ghost Academy gets added in. Come on, Clem, show us what you got. Vehicle weapons level 1 is almost complete. It's gonna help these tanks out a bit with more damage. Interesting fight that Clem takes there. Hadn't quite expected him to feel comfortable in that particular fight. Burrow is on the way. He's going to help these infestors be a little bit more covert when trying to land big fungals. As a Lurker then starts, Viper's now on the way as well. 5th base being built at the 6 o'clock location for Serral. Take a look at the creep spread right now that Serral has and see how mediocre it is compared to a standard Serral game. I think a lot of that has to do with those early 3 queen losses. Of course, Clem's constant aggression also helps, but we're gonna have to wait and see what Clem's plans are going to be for now, as it is 2-2 upgrades against 1-1. Fungal Boys now moving forward. We're gonna see a Roach Infestor attack, which is something we almost never see. Bunker's gonna get taken out. Burrow almost done, as the first 5 Hydras are also on the way here for Serral. Ghost just kind of standing there, having a blast. Having a good old blast. No 3-3 starting yet, the observer points out here. It's a good thing to point out. Another fungal is going to connect with these Marines. Couple of snipes as well hitting here. 84 workers for Clem against the 74 of Serral. This is something that's important to keep in mind. Is that Clem doesn't only have a very powerful army, he also has the ability to reproduce, because he's gonna have a big bank. And he has very high income. He's a wealthy individual, is what I'm trying to say, yes. A very wealthy individual indeed. Big scan forward here. Lurker's now moving in position. Vipers need to show up as well at some point, but as the ghosts are nearby, that could be scary for the Vipers. Roaches are going to help here in the defense. Vipers now out of energy, it seems like to me. Serral moved them back to try and gather a bit more, perhaps from the hive. Lurkers on the right side will deal with this particular threat, as Seismic Spines isn't quite done yet. Perhaps these Marines slightly out of range. Queens, of course, dishing out a bit of damage as well. Roach is way too far forward, fighting outside of Lurker range, as Clem now shooting these snipes on these Lurkers. The Lurker count is dwindling rather quickly, as a fungal now connects with a big portion of the army. Let's see if there's going to be a kind of a finishing blow to that Bioforce here. There's a lot of tanks in the back. This base in trouble. Is Serral going to send it? He is going to send it. Fungal's connecting. EMP hits with the Vipers on the left side, but there's so many tanks going all the way to the back. I don't think Serral can quite move forward into this position. As I said, more links moving in. Lurker sets up just outside of scan range. This is such a Serral move. He's just so attentive to every little detail in the fight, and somehow, some way is going to clean up this position, which felt like it shouldn't have been capable of being cleaned up. Yes, Clem still has a fantastic economy, but lost a lot of tanks there, and tanks really the backbone of the Terran force. Bottom side now completely secure as well, as Clem has no pressure on that right side whatsoever. And that is not just scary, because it means that Serral has more freedom. It is also scary because if you have no pressure on the right side, it means that Serral can start putting pressure on the right side. This is the Serral trademark, is Lurkers burrowing everywhere, but Serral can only do that. Yeah, there we go. Serral can only do that if he has the freedom, if he has to defend 2-3 positions at the same time. He is not capable of making plays like that at all. It is not possible. But now, whereas before Clem, all he really needed to do was attack and focus on one place at the same time, he now is forced in defending multiple spots here, as the Lurker in the back is going to help out. Another scan is going to hit, and one Lurker will remain there on that right side. And I think Serral probably is considering sending a bigger force towards that right now. Maybe even a Nidus network or a drop towards the main. These are all somewhat viable options here. Lurker's moving forward, going to defend this setup. And I think having a turret here to defend these tanks would be nice. Just in general, having a turret with all of these pushes, I think, would be very helpful. Not just against burrowed infestors, but also against Vipers. Just having them on the edge makes it harder for Vipers to navigate and makes it more committed whenever a Viper does try to go in with a Blinding Cloud or with an Abduct. Of course, also helps against Overseers, potentially. Like, I think a turret is always going to be worth it, especially if you know your opponent has burrowed infestors. This is a huge counter-attack move, though. Planetary not quite done yet. Adrenal Glands, I think, has finished up. I can't recall it being researched, but knowing Serral, I'm pretty sure it's going to be there. A huge move here from our Finnish Zerg player, who gets a 6 setup with these Lurkers. Is now pushing forward. This is fairly committed, though. Don't get this wrong. Serral doesn't have a crazy eco behind this, so he needs to trade out somewhat efficiently, and boy, is he doing that right now. Because we see Clem falling down to 150 supply. Lots of workers being taken out as well by that Ling run by. As Link's in the natural, adding a little bit more damage. A Lurker on the top side. Overseer trying to go into the main. I'm not sure if that's for a Nidus network or a Nidus worm. I haven't quite seen the Nidus network actually being constructed yet. So maybe it was just for a cheeky little scout. I don't know what it was for. But it does feel that Serral, for the first time in this game, is kind of in control of the map. And although his supply isn't great, Serral in control is a very scary prospect. Baneling speed right now on the way. Centrifugal hooks, it's cheaper, it's faster, but it's worse. As these Banelings are not going to get that 5 HP bonus, as mentioned before. Lurkers once again moving in spots here to harass against the planetary, to try and take out this orbital command. Look at this. Ghosts are going to move in position, will snipe the Lurker. But Serral in control is a very scary Serral, of course. Absolutely awful to deal with. 16 minutes into the game, supply still very close. Altitude seems to be a brilliant map for these two guys to face off on as well, may I say. Tank in the back helping out. It's gonna get blinding clouded. There's not a whole lot of siege here. So that Infestor's gonna get sniped before it gets to do anything. Honestly, impressive fight here out of Clem without siege tanks to back him up. Really thought this was gonna be much, much harder for him. And as we see the Lurker just kind of moving back and forth between different positions, harassing that planetary. Serral is so fast. He's so quick. It is crazy. And on top of that, his decision making is insane as well. It's like, this guy, he really has it all, you know? He could have had it all. Well, Serral has it all. If Adele had seen Serral play before she wrote that song, she never would have written that song. Yeah, because Serral has it all. Okay, he doesn't need to roll in the deep no more. Actually not sure what the point of rolling in the deep is either in the Adele song. Not sure how rolling in the deep is gonna give it all to you. Like rolling in the deep is a negative thing. But Serral has rolled into the deep. And he came out of the deep. With a set of skills. Up until that point, unknown to mankind. Clem, though, still in a fine position. Right now is securing his 6th base. This is a hard base to keep. Because it really spreads yourself very, very thin. Clem realizes he's a bit out of position. I think there's a fight happening on the right side. Would love to see what's kicking off there. Okay, new planetary on the way. I actually think taking the 6th base before that planetary is up on the right side might be a mistake. Because it really forces a thin spread of Clem's units. Once again, Infestor moving in. It's so important to have turrets here, brother. Oh, that's a beautiful scan, though. That is indeed a beautiful scan. As now Serral trying to push this back. I feel like if you clear 7 Infestors like that, surely it's worth it to just get a turret here made. So another Infestor is now showing up. Clem not... Oh, no, he sees it. His eyes are working like a freaking charm over here. Comes an attack, though. This is not a planetary. This is an orbital. And that orbital will not give the backup that this army needs. Tank's not really in position either. And although the supply is close, it felt like this was a very good fight here for Serral. Just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot for Clem out on the map right now. Scanned as another Infestor is going to attempt a similar move to before. I think this one can actually unburrow, get a fungal off. Yes, that is a huge fungal. Uh-oh, 1 fungal is all you need. And Serral right now taking out a lot of supply of his opponent. Baneling's rolling in forward. And that orbital command is toast. If Serral wants to, he doesn't want to. He says, hey, I actually want to take out some of these tanks. Seems like a risky endeavor here. He's gonna commit to it though and gets it. Cloak finally finishes up for these ghosts. Clem, I think he needs to calm down a little bit. I know it's not in his nature. He's an aggressive boy. He's a beast. But he needs to calm down, or he needs to split his attention a bit. Defensive position on the left, maybe some harassment on the right, because while this is happening, Saro is growing his economy on the far right side. 92 drones is the highest he's been this entire game. Complete control here of this game right now in the hands of Saro, it really feels like. And Clem, he's in trouble. Clem is in trouble here. Banelings rolling forward. We see some abducts on these tanks. There's really not that many tanks. There's a big spread, though, that Clem can take. Needs another stim on these Marines. They're gonna get flanked by the Banelings from the bottom. Clem with the GG. Absolutely phenomenal play. Saro wins this series, or sorry, wins the game and thus wins the ace match for Team Basilisk. Team Liquid almost there with the upset. As we see the rest of the scores that happen. Of course, I'm not going to be casting all of these games. Sounds like a lot of work for me. This was a phenomenal game, though. I'm glad I watched this one. Thanks to all of you for watching. If you did enjoy this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see all of you next time for a new video. Bye-bye.